through your skin, what you allow into your body through your lungs, your breathing, and certainly what you allow into your being through your heart and mind, such as the media and people you allow into your sacred space. You want to be conscientious as possible to allow only what nourishes you in while trying to keep as much of the toxic out. Now, at the same time, remember not to worry that you are not doing it all. Remember that you are human, and every step you take in this direction of guarding your temple is a magnificent step that can and will impact you in a bigger way than you likely imagine. Because listen, there is undoubtedly so much challenge in our world today, but it is so important to remember and be thankful that we also live in a very special and magnificent time because we are alive here at the beginning of a true health revolution. You see, that's because today we now do have the crystal clear picture of the specific natural steps you must take on your own, no medical intervention required, to provide this ultimate care to our brains, our bodies, our being, to our temple. Now, way back on day one of this summit, and since then, we've identified the one very big problem that actually stands in many people's way, and that's noise. Noise refers to the fact that there's a ton of health information coming at you from every direction these days, not to mention a ton of other noise on other topics trying to own your attention as well. From emails, articles, online events, news, blogs, and beyond, there really seems to be an endless barrage of health advice out there. And, well, the big problem is that people are so overwhelmed and can be so confused by it all that you're not 100% certain what steps you should actually take that will truly make the biggest and most important difference for your health and life that will enable you to most guard your temple. Which leads me back to you and to this Now It's Personal, the Ultimate Healthy Aging and Longevity Summit. Because I am so for our health and longevity.
Well, as you know, we spend most of our times indoors, and where we have the greatest control over that time and what we surround ourselves with is at home. And this was true even before COVID had us hunkered down at home. And most of us who want and actively pursue our optimal well-being, including maybe spending time in nature, we've overlooked the impact of how much time we spend at home and how our homes can influence us. I know it started out personal for me. I was always interested and intrigued by the idea, but environmental psychology, which I learned about in graduate school, turned out to be the arena of academics and institutes and commerce like real estate and recreational resorts and places like that. And that wasn't of interest to me. I was interested in helping people change their lives. But my career path changed when I became very ill in the 1990s. So I started seriously studying what I could do to feel better about my situation at the very least. And I started with awareness, and I think that's where we start with everyone.
That's great. Great. Like so many leaders in these different areas of expertise, it's interesting to me that you entered into it. Well, you had an interest, but then you experienced your personal challenges, your personal illness, and that really pulled you in. That seems to be the trend in the story with most of us who ending up putting these wonderfully helpful things out to the world. And everyone listening, believe me, it makes a massive difference. Really, when you step back from it, it's common sense. You're surrounded most of your day, every day, more depending on who you are, or maybe a little less depending on if you're someone who had somewhere else for your work. And it's going to have a tremendous impact on you. I am so glad there are leaders like you, Deborah, who are putting this more prominently on the map where it needs to be. And we're going to hear some powerful insights in this regard here in a moment. However, first, before we get to the big question, well, I know you are well aware of how important laughter from your experience, from your expertise, Can you please share 3 of the most important steps that you personally take to look and feel your best, avoid and possibly even overcome disease and live long doing it? What would a first step be?
Well, the first step is always awareness. And you have to do a little detective work to assess what your relationship with your home already is. We become very comfortable with what we're familiar with and no longer notice it. So you have to take a moment, step back, and take off automatic pilot so you can see what's really going on. You only want to focus in on what you need to change. We don't have enough challenges without trying to go looking for more that you don't really need to alter. So specifically, what would you like different about your life? What would you like different about your home? What do you need more or less of in your life? And how would you like your home to look? How would you know when you get what you need in life? Ask yourself these questions as you're going through your house playing detective with how does this show up in my life right now?
That's fantastic. So let's use me, if you don't mind, as something of an example here. So in my own home, the very valuable exercise would be stepping back, putting on my full conscious awareness of everything, and really in each room surrounding me, with in mind that I want less stress. Let's just use that as an example. Don't we all want less stress? Well, I want less stress. So to continue using myself as an example here, I might move around the different rooms of my home, especially those I spend time in, and try to identify ways that I can reduce stress, things that may be contributing to the stress, things that I could change, right, that could help de-stress. Let me just do this. Let's pretend that you're in my office with me right now. What are your feelings, for example, about, let's say, clutter in that regard?
Clutter is highly personal, and I talk a great deal about that with almost all of my clients. We Americans have so much of everything. It really is true sometimes, as George Carlin joked, home is a house where we put our stuff while we go out and get more stuff. We just have too much of everything. But there's some research that some of us need a whole lot more fullness in our lives than others. And a lot of my clients are very guilty if they have a home that is very full and does not look like a contemporary, streamlined house with nothing out of place anywhere. That's just not who they are or how they live. And we want to honor our natural rhythms and preferences as well. There's some indication that very creative people like piles of things as they're actively working instead of filing everything away. Whereas my husband doesn't want a thing on his desk except what he's working on. It's just totally different styles. It seems that some research indicates that a certain degree of chaos in a working area stimulates creativity with your work, where other people need everything, it overstimulates them and they need everything out of sight except exactly what they're working on to have a clear mind. So what's causing you stress? What are your preferences in a sensory way? Do you need more or less in your life? Is it overstimulation that's causing the stress, or are you understimulated? Where are you feeling stress? How is it showing up? And how would you know when you are not so stressed?
That's fantastic. So in terms of clutter, everyone listening, it's your personal definition of it, specifically in terms of how it may make you feel. It's worth knowing thyself, awareness, as Deborah first started talking about here. In my case, I must be somewhat of a creative person because I do like some of those piles. I don't like overwhelming amounts of clutter, of course, but I have straightened my office to the point where it is literally a minimalist approach, and I did not feel comfortable. I pay close attention to how I feel in that situation.
Perfect.
And yeah, exactly. And that's just one small key, everyone listening, to how you build that awareness. Another one is, I can ask you all kinds of questions down this avenue, but staying, perhaps in my office here, what colors might be most conducive, therefore, because reducing stress would be one of my goals. What are your thoughts there?
First of all, make sure it's a color that you enjoy. I don't care what I like. If you don't care for it, don't do it. Having what you like around you is first and foremost. There have been a lot of research around work productivity worldwide. Biophilia has been funded to do some of that, and what helps with productivity and workers' preferences and that kind of thing. Natural color schemes tend to be very good for almost everyone with pops of color. So you maybe have subtle green or brown walls or something to that order, and pops of red or yellow. So that stimulates some energy and some attention, but mostly soothing neutrals around you. And nature colors are always good.
Mm-hmm. Again, I don't want to steal thunder from later answers. We can go so deep in all of these anyway, but I think lighting is another aspect that people do not give adequate attention to. If that's one of your forthcoming answers, we'll go deeper. But in terms of lighting, let's again say stress reduction is a goal. Perhaps some suggestions there.
Well, again, lighting is probably one of the areas best known for people to address when they are talking about, okay, I'm going to have a prettier, healthier home. I'm going to work on the lighting, but they don't really know what that consists of, how to do that for themselves. In an office, you'd want to be sure that you don't have glare on your computer screen to cause headaches, for example. So controlling the glare on your screen, the contrast between the light on your working area and the rest of the room shouldn't be as high as 50%. That's too much contrast. It makes your eye muscles strain. They work too hard. But you do want adequate lighting. Stay away from fluorescents. That is just, there's much better choices out there. You don't need them. Lots of light bulbs have the color rendering on the box so you can check and see how true to color they are. You don't want your carefully chosen color scheme that you mentioned already turning yellow or green on you because the light spectrum in your light bulb altered it. And some light bulbs flicker. You may not be able to tell them anymore. The fluorescents have gotten a lot better, but that's not good for you physically or in any other way. So you can have healthier choices that way with better color rendering too. You almost need a PhD to know all about lighting anymore. It's become so complicated. Just walk down any Home Depot aisle, for example, and read the choices you have there. But it's important to know. It makes a huge difference. If you have multiple sources of lighting in your office, for example, you may have difference in the color of the light it emits. That will be unsettling if you're very sensitive to your environment. So check that out as well, consciously.
Mm-hmm. And, a general rule of thumb that, is in your book and that you've shared with me is tremendously useful, everybody, is we are beings who naturally want and need daylight in the day and a lack of daylight at night. If you're going to have light at night in the evening hours, it should probably closely resemble firelight. And the closer we can get to that model in our even artificial lighting that we use in our lives, it would seem to be the healthier. Is that a valid statement in general, Deborah?
Well, it makes sense because that's how we evolved for millennia. It's what our bodies have evolved with and respond positively to. We don't respond well to the altered spectrums available that some light bulbs put out. Light is not light equally, and it does a lot of things to us physically, emotionally, and lots of other ways to enhance our lighting. Be careful with what you're choosing artificially, yes, but the daylighting, as you mentioned, is essential in having a very high-functioning life. You want to have plenty of light coming in without inviting in glare. So solar shades might be an example. If you had a lot of bright, strong sunlight coming in, something to stop the glare without stopping the light that pours in, which is very healthy for us.
Yeah, the natural daylight. During the day, nothing better than that. You're right. Of course, with the glare, you want to reduce that because of eye strain. And in large part inspired by you, I've made a conscious effort to reduce the amount of LED lights because they can contain blue light, or they do contain blue light. And people have these on in their homes and other indoor spaces throughout the course of days. And that is very unnatural for our circadian rhythms.
Absolutely.
Right? To be exposed to so much blue light, which, by the way, we're also getting far too much of from our computer screens and our phone screens and so forth. Unfortunately here, they're very eco-conscious, and that runs counter to them not being so health-conscious. Incandescent bulbs, the good old-fashioned Thomas Edison type of light bulbs that many of us grew up with and have long used, in general, it's a general statement, I realize that, but for health reasons are probably more health-conscious for us. Is that also valid to you, Deborah?
Absolutely. So what I tell clients who aren't willing to compromise on their budgeting with some of those is it makes sense perhaps to use long-lasting LEDs at the high places or the difficult to reach places that you don't want to climb on a ladder to get a new bulb to all the time. They last forever. But where you have something where you're needing task lighting and you're close to that light, make sure that it's health friendly.
Great advice, great insight. And I suppose for outside lighting, which is more for effect in many cases, or to light up our entryways, LEDs okay, because we're not standing there or sitting there for hours, unlike inside the homes. So that makes complete sense. And everyone listening, so just a couple of examples, but let me jump back to Deborah's really powerful first answer here, which is awareness. So I used myself as an example. Lighting matters. Color matters, to be very conscious of how those are impacting you, but there's so many other facets. Clutter or lack thereof matters, and that's something that you have to feel out regarding yourself in that situation. But there are other facets as well, which I am sure we'll delve into here. So, Deborah, let me ask you what another of the most important steps you personally take to live long and well would be from your area of expertise.
Well, after you get a sense of what's working for you in your home and what your relationship with your home is like, I am comfortable here. I've always been irritated when I'm in this area. I think it's because once you've done that detective work, then what you probably want to move on to is detoxing. And I'm talking about it in a little bit different perspective. We usually think of detox as with physical things, and most of us do have too much clutter, as we've already talked about a little bit. But we also are bombarded with stimulus of every sort: information, color, activities, telephone conversations. We're literally bombarded and almost too much sensory stimulation everywhere. So perhaps what we need to do is cull some of that out. And perhaps that starts with the physical. And there's a great deal of information out there when you talk about detoxing the environment. That's become kind of a catchword. I've seen that in articles several times this past year. And yes, air quality, water quality, thermal conditioning of our home, toxic loads, all of those things are incredibly important. And I'm not minimizing them in any way. Even light pollution, as you had mentioned earlier, we don't want to be flooded with light at night. Do we have ways of blocking that out? So all of these areas affect us, and we need to be able to take out what's not working. It doesn't make sense to add more to try to fix up around something that is causing us to be less than having the life we deserve and want. So take out what's not working next, or minimize it.
Mm-hmm. At the least, right? Try to minimize it. So step one, in your home, everyone, walk through very consciously, slowly. You can even make this fun, by the way. It's kind of, as far as health changes go, this is actually a good time, you know.
Oh, it
and you can walk.
is.
Yeah,
Yes.
it really is. And you walk through and you're like, all right, whether it is light, color, the objects in that space, the amount of clutter or lack thereof, any and every aspect of it, really. And then step two is, how can I detox? Now, you are so correct. And we have certainly discussed and will discuss, including in other interviews, the more common types of toxins that folks think about when they think about toxins, which indeed are air quality, water quality, food quality, quality of your personal care products. Be very conscious of that. But there are as many toxins to be aware of, as you noted, that we don't commonly think about regarding, like we already discussed somewhat, light. Like you have certainly taught me, Deborah, sound pollution, noise pollution. This is a big one because we live in a world where, as I understand it, there are very few places left on this earth where there's not some sort of noise pollution. Unfortunately, that's true, but our homes ought to be a place where we don't have that noise pollution. So, maybe there's not a way to completely eliminate it if you live in a busy area, a road nearby, anything like that, or in a plane, airport path. However, it impacts you more than you may realize. Noise pollution, just a few things. It can increase depression, irritability, increase stress levels, lead to cognitive brain issues. Hearing loss, of course, is associated with this noise. So when you're doing this, walking through your home with awareness, you're examining how to detox on all of these different levels, folks. And there are so many changes you can make that, Deborah, what I love, and I love it as explained in your book, and I love it as you're explaining here, a lot of these are easy. This is not some high-cost endeavor, right?
And fun. As you also said, it should be fun. It's an adventure and discovery, self-discovery, and it's fun to see what you can do with what you already have and what's already around you. It's interesting what we put around us, and we're on autopilot in a way, and we're not even fully aware of what we've created around us.
Yep. And in fact, regarding that, the autopilot, that's how we adopt and then continue on in life with all kinds of bad habits. It's the autopilot mode, how we eat, how people sit too much. First, we made a conscious choice at some point, right, to go and head to that fast food joint. And then these things became habits. So just like so much other work, everyone listening that you've done and continue to do, it really does start with a conscientiousness and pointing your attention to these things that have become habits. Oh my goodness, I'm sitting too long in a couch every single day. Many people have in recent years had that awareness, especially if you are middle-aged or beyond. Many people have had the awareness, oh my goodness, I always eat these foods. Most of the time, don't give it a second thought. Well, it applies, as Deborah is explaining, to your home as well. Tremendous impacts on your health, so many of these different facets, but we take them for granted, or more than that, they've just become there and we don't think about them. So it's important to start rethinking about them, as Deborah's pointing out here.
And as you were asking me earlier, maybe there's not much we can do, but I'd like to make up fun memory cues for my benefit when I can. And the one I've done for the sound situation is ABCs, the ABCs of sound management, pun intended. You can use textiles and curtains and heavier fabrics to absorb the sound. That's the A. B is block. You can use screens or something like that to rearrange and redirect the sounds. C is cover. And there's been a huge amount of study on using sound machines, white noise, to facilitate the noise that we can't control any other way. That's highly personal also. I have a white noise machine, a sound machine, and I love the nature sounds on there. But personally, I love the thunder and lightning. I love this oncoming storm and the sounds of that. My husband, being an avid mountain hiker, doesn't find anything comforting about that. So his needs for what is soothing are entirely different that way than mine. I'm a Midwest gal. As long as you're home safe and snug, that seems wonderful to me.
Well, I'm a Midwest boy and I love the thunderstorm sounds as well. But my son, for example, definitely does not. So it is a personal preference, these nature sounds you're talking about, or the use of white noise. But indeed, they help. I love that, by the way, the ABCs. That's a focus on noise in your home and how to minimize or eliminate it. Absorb, block, and cover. Regarding absorb, a lot of people don't think about that one, but you certainly want your bedroom to be a quiet place. Sleep
Absolutely.
is so healthy, so important to get proper sleep. One of the big problems that many people have, many don't realize it until, again, and we're talking conscientiousness here, awareness, until they focus on it, is that it's noisy at night in their bedrooms. Again, often from a road nearby, other factors at play as well. And you're right, the use of pillows and rugs and things of that nature can really go a long way toward reducing that, especially if you have a room that's got a lot of not carpeting on the floor. The sound bounces around a lot. Again, simple pillows and positioning and perhaps heavier curtains, if you don't have them, can absorb a lot of that noise, block the noise as well in the case of certain types of sound dampening curtains, as I mentioned, and then cover that sound. Another great one that I really like and use, Deborah, are indoor water fountains.
Aren't they wonderful?
I love them. And
they help in lots of ways.
Yeah. Again, a very small investment for a really big payoff in your health, in your reduced stress levels, and great sleep, and ability to focus. A simple water fountain that you can get at a lot of places for a relatively low investment. So there you go, folks. Well, Deborah, great conversation so far. Let me ask you, what is another of the most important steps that you personally take to live long and well?
Well, with the detox, that's such a huge, important thing. We can become almost paralyzed with overwhelm because it seems like every time you turn around, we're reading, that's dangerous, that's dangerous, that's dangerous. So you need to stay out of overwhelm, start with your priorities. What is it I'm most aware of and most concerned with, and start with that. With my design, I can do certain things, and it's surprising what you can address with that approach. But I am not a scientist and I'm not an expert in a lot of these areas. But thank goodness, with a societal awareness of these issues, there are resources out there. And I've listed several on my website, like buildingbiology.com, and they reflect the built environment and interaction between the built environment and people and sustaining healthy living that way. Buildingbiology.org also teaches classes and will help you with finding experts, certified experts in the field. EWG, Environmental Working Group, puts out their own evaluation of home products and chemicals around the house, sometimes controversial, but they are watchdogs for us. So those are just a few of the experts out there that can help you delve deeper into some of these areas that may be causing you some challenges.
Well, appreciate the resources. And let me jump back to your answer, priorities. This is also a great one. I've said this before, everyone. It so bears repeating, not just with these important steps that Deborah has brought to light in this conversation, but every single most effective step that you're hearing throughout this entire summit. The last thing in the world that you should ever do regarding any of this is feel stress or worry about implementing it. It's all about, first and foremost, this word keeps coming up in this conversation, and that's a good thing, awareness of these really powerful steps. And then whether it is all of the different steps you're hearing throughout this important event, and really the important steps you're hearing in this particular conversation, prioritize based on experiencing it, hearing it all, and then determine what next step you're going to take. As Deborah noted, in the case of inside your home, you can't do it all. You shouldn't try to do it all. That's a recipe for stress and disaster right there. Instead, feel. Your gut reaction will tell you what is most important to me. There are certain rooms, right, Deborah, and maybe you can address that briefly, that probably are more important overall than other rooms, as just one example of how you might prioritize. Can you comment on that?
Well, what comes to mind is people like to start with either the kitchen, the bathroom, or the living room, because the kitchen and the bathroom, of course, are central to how we feel and eat and take care of ourselves. And so we're very aware of that. And the living room is very public. However, the bedroom is probably as critical as anything we can do in our house to pay attention to. It matters on our level of quality of sleep. And if you're not getting good rest, you're not going to be healthy no matter what else is going on. And there are lots of things you can do to take care of yourself in there that are more design oriented, including covering your windows at night with a heavier window covering. Right now with minimalism trend, so many people don't want window coverings at all, but please don't do that in your bedroom. Find a way to block out the light for better sleep. And we all know about keeping the room cooler at night and using high-quality textiles, organic bedding. That's not the place to save on your budget. You can do that in some other areas. Keep LEDs out of your bedroom. Use other kinds of light bulbs in the reading lamps and the table lamps by your bed. One of the things people don't think about is, what do you see the first thing you wake up in the morning and the last thing when you go to sleep at night? That has a tremendous influence on how you go through your day. How do you feel about the day? For me, it's an old wooden rocking chair that's not particularly my style, and I certainly wouldn't put a picture of it on house for decorating inspiration, but that's my husband's favorite chair. And there's also an overhead sconce, a light on the wall, so that sometimes in the evening he'll sit there and talk to me when we're winding down, or he'll read to me. So when I look at that rocking chair, whether he's in it or not, I am flooded with gratitude for having a relationship like that. It's not the rocking chair, it's the reaction it triggers.
That's fantastic. So on prioritization, it seems to make sense where we spend our sleep time, our regenerative time. It would seem to make sense to focus there. If you're going to choose an order here, that would probably indeed be first and foremost. You're right. It's the last thing you see and feel, and it's the first thing you see and feel each day is where you wake up. And then, like you noted, of course, the kitchen, it's the source of our nourishment and our health. And it would really make a lot of sense to then put your focus there as well, folks. And if you're like me, to bring you this event requires an unbelievable amount of work. So I brought up my office at the start of this conversation for a reason. I spend a whole lot of time in this office. And anywhere, folks, that you spend ample amounts of time in your home, if you're going to prioritize, it would just seem to make sense to put your focus on that space next as well.
Yes, you're right. Absolutely. And all areas of the home like that should be purposeful and vibrant and full of life for you. But your bedroom is probably like the oxygen mask on an airplane. If it's not working for you, other parts of your life are not going to be working for you either.
Well said. Let me drive down a couple more particular routes here because we have just a little more time and I've got to ask you some important questions here. First and foremost, there is a movement, and thank goodness, in my opinion, toward natural and bringing natural things inside the home. Now, I know you study biophilia, so you are versed in this area. Maybe share with everyone listening how important that can be.
Biophilia it's credited with all this healthy home that we're reading so much about lately. And it's well studied. It's backed by commerce, so they have the money to research a lot of these things. The natural office colors that I mentioned earlier was biophilic in the study, in the research. There have been several principles that have been put out that you can use biophilic or bringing nature inside to help you be healthier. And it affects us on so many levels, physically, emotionally, mentally, and affects the bottom line, or commerce wouldn't be spending money and energy on it. There are a few of the principles that you may not be thinking about, like visual connections to nature. Okay, well, windows, if you have a nice view out your windows, that is primary and easy way to do that, and it's what people think of. But research, surprisingly enough, has found that even simulated pictures of nature will work, like on your computer screen or pieces of art or photographs that you have. Of nature or animals will also give you similar effects. Early research on this was done in a hospital setting, and patients who had views with nature healed much faster, needed less painkillers, and so forth. They just were better moods, better in every way than people who looked at a brick wall or construction areas.
Fascinating. And I can't stress the importance of what you just said enough because, again, so many people who are health conscious, this is newer material. I realize that. But just like you consume food and it nourishes your body, you are consuming everything around you through your eyes, through your ears, through any way, available inside of your being. And it matters in a big way. And how fun. Talk about fun again. It's kind of I hate this expression, killing two birds with one stone. It's bringing the life two birds with one action. How's that for a positive spin? But what I'm going to here is you can go outside, which is incredibly good for you. We've covered how we all need more of that for so many different reasons, but you can go outside, folks, and just have fun finding pieces of nature to bring inside the home. Pine cones, cool branches, cool leaves, whatever it may be. And you're doing yourself a big favor, not just by being outside doing that, but by bringing that nature inside your home and then decorating your shelves or your walls with these things. More than you can imagine, you are impacting your health and longevity by doing that. Because as Deborah noted here, merely seeing, even if you're not consciously doing it, but just having that in your vicinity, seeing these natural wonders all around you is going to improve your health. Bottom line, by improving your mood, by different facets of things. It's such a wonderful thing. And again, as we covered, you could do this in terms of what you hear as well, the waterfalls and the machines. The brain does not know the difference if it's a real babbling brook that you're lucky enough to have outside your window or one coming from your stereo. So it is such a powerful thing that I'm glad you addressed, Deborah.
Brian, it affects us not only emotionally and mentally, but it also affects us physically. It can slow down our heart rates and our blood pressure. It can do all kinds of wonderful things for us on a physical level. In fact, if you don't have it, you're going to have more stress. As space is pleasant, then we generate those feeling good chemicals, neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine and so forth. But if it's unpleasant, loud, chaotic, disconnected from nature and things that we care about, as we sometimes are when we're all hunkered down, we secrete that flight or fight transmitter, adrenaline, and the stress hormone cortisol, which makes us feel more stressed out and anxious and increases blood pressure and strain and all kinds of physical stressors. The research indicates that the effects aren't just fleeting, they're long lasting.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, how affordable? Sure, and you could go buy inexpensive artwork that's of nature. You can make it yourself, or you can have someone else make it for you if you don't feel you're artistically inclined to create a cool little painting of nature or something like that. Get out there with your camera. It's on everyone's phones. Take pictures, have them enlarged, put them on your walls. I do this with, I'm a big time gardener, Deborah, and that includes of flowers and cool plants just because they're beautiful and it's such a healthy activity that I'm engaging with outside. But I will then go take my camera and I'll take all these cool shots. I think they're artistic. I don't know if they sell in the marketplace, but who cares? I have them blown up. I put them on my walls. It's good on physical, emotional, mental levels for you to do that. While we're talking about things in the home and objects in the home, let me ask you one more question. We're talking about awareness and sometimes lack of awareness. How important is it to focus on objects in our home? It could be clothing. It could be little knickknacks that we have all over. Should we pay attention to that too, about the energy, so to speak, that they're sending us, positive, negative? What are your thoughts?
Well, Brian, they will whether you want them to or not. Everything around us has an impact. We process life through our senses, and our body takes that in, usually below the conscious awareness because it happens so quickly, 1/10 of a second or less, I think. And so we can't possibly be aware of all the messages we're getting, but that creates physical reactions within our body for better or for the worse. Does it help you or does it not? That's what the question is. If you have large collections of things, there are things you care about, so it demands your attention. If it's a very large collection, I would probably cull it down a little bit so occasionally you can rotate them and really appreciate the pieces individually. Otherwise, you just don't see them. And you have more things to collect dust and time to clean and take care of all of those things too. So look around you. Everything around you makes a difference, but you can't deal with all of it all at once. So
step by step, right? Exactly.
Right.
So again, we go back to the start, the awareness.
There's some other fun things about biophilia or principles of nature that people don't think about, but they have proven with the research. And that is like how we construct our rooms. Men tend to like the prospect or wide open view, and that makes sense from a nature point because we evolved needing to see what was coming. Are we safe? What is out there? So in the wide open floor plan, it makes sense from that. They call that prospect in the literature. We need both prospect, and the other part of it is refuge. Do you have a cozy place where you can curl up with a book, for example, and relax? Is it someplace where you feel sheltered and safe? And women seem to prefer that, but we each need both. You can, for example, in a bedroom with a canopied bed, you can have a lowered ceiling in that particular area so you feel more snugged in. But other areas you'd want wide open and not block the view. One of the other principles is mystery. So things look more interesting and you're intrigued to go forward if you don't see everything all at once. So in an entryway, whether it's the main entry or an entry to a room, you can block it with screens or plants. I love doing it with large plants and uplights. It really creates a little bit of mystery and intrigue about what's beyond that corner. And spaces actually look larger if you can't see everything at once.
Well, first of all, it's really cool. By the way, regarding prospect and refuge, honestly enlightening. I'll briefly repeat that for everyone. So prospect are the wide open spaces. Apparently, it makes sense, really. Men tend to prefer that. And I think design trends moved a lot toward wide open spaces. And that's great. It serves its purpose. But do you, everyone listening, have a place or two in your home of refuge where it feels more cozy, more intimate, more protected? So as you are walking through and doing this conscious evaluation of your health in relation to your home, Great question to ask. And then adding a little mystery. Who doesn't want a little mystery? Not just for guests, which is interesting and important, but for yourself too. At a subconscious level, to have that sense of mystery by utilizing, again, what a great example, plants, tall plants, so that you can't see everything in front of you. It lends this air of mystery or excitement, so to speak. Wonderful. Regarding objects, and your answer there, Deborah, I just want to note, so I went through a divorce years ago, and I realized I was holding on to some pieces and things that I got during that marriage, and I did this exercise, consciously focusing my attention on different objects in the home, and realized, oh, wow, there's kind of a negative energy associated with these cool things. They're not so cool anymore. And I got rid of them, long story short. I mean, it's just one example of many. Things that are inanimate are not. They take on a life of whatever you might have been doing at the time, your phase of life at that time. And so walking through, again, we're bringing this full circle, walking through with awareness of all of these things, perhaps starting with the most important spaces in your home, your bedroom, the kitchen, your office, if you spend a lot of time there like I do, and just focusing your attention on these things to first and foremost become aware, and then just to prioritize on what you want to start changing to greatly, and I will stress that, greatly improve your health at levels that you probably can't imagine until you go through these changes, everyone. This has been fantastic.
And it's so easy. It's so easy. Some easy, simple changes. I'm not talking about gutting the place, starting all over with new furnishings or remodeling. It's so easy to take what you already have around you. And I talk about living with art. You can add something or enhance or maximize through what you place in there and how you place it, like with lighting, for example. You can rearrange, reorganize, repurpose something and give it new life that way. Or you can take away or minimize or remove something. With those 3 steps, you can do all kinds of incredible things in your home with what you already have.
And the bottom line, it's fun. It really is.
Oh, it is.
Which, as we started saying again at the beginning of this conversation and others I've had throughout this summit, fun is so important. This one doesn't hurt. These changes are enjoyable to go through this and do this. It's a vibrant phase of life that you periodically want to keep doing because we change, don't we, Deborah? I mean, address that, if you will, before we have to close downhill. We do change.
Best is just for now. It's for how your life is working now. That's all that means. Get it to where it feels maximum for now. You will change, you should change, and then you should do a review with your home again to see where you are, just like you would a health check on your body. Where are we now? What's going on? What's working? Are there problems that are showing up that didn't show up a year ago?
Wonderful. Well, listen, Deborah, let me just say this. We've got hundreds of thousands of people who will hear this, and I'd fathom to say that most will hear this in their homes. And well, hearing the incredible and unique insights that you just shared, that alone really did just make their homes a warmer place. Everyone listening, I want to briefly remind you that you don't have to worry about missing anything you just heard because you'll be able to read it all